All right, guys. So Representative Ritchie Torres recently went on the Friedland show, and this was really one of the most revealing interviews that I've seen in a long time because I went into this already kind of knowing who Ritchie is. I mean, truly one of the most despicable members of Congress that we have. This guy seems to spend most of his time defending and justifying Israel's genocide in Gaza. As you can see here from APAC Tracker, he is one of the top recipients of the pro-Israel lobby's cash for his campaign to keep himself in power. Almost $1.5 million received from the pro-Israel lobby. We also had this story that came out just a couple days ago that he was investing in weapons manufacturers as he was voting on bills to send billions of dollars in weapons to Israel to help facilitate the genocide in Gaza. And even with that extremely low opinion that I already had of him, Adam was able to bring out a truly soulless and decrepit side of Ritchie that gives you a good insight into how morally bankrupt the current state of the Democratic Party as well as just Congress broadly is at this moment. So let's go ahead and jump into this first clip here. The context that they're talking about is Ritchie Torres, his sort of Zionist beliefs, his support for Israel, and specifically a trip that he took to Israel that was apparently life-changing for him.
What's at the Gaza envelope?
Like
I've never heard that term before.
Stay road.
Stay road. Yeah, with the rockets going in. Yeah. How far is Stay road from Gaza? It's like a mile or something.
Yeah, with that mile.
Yeah. It's right next to it.
Yeah, striking proximity.
Tough.
Yeah.
It's a small place.
Yeah.
The whole thing. Yeah.
I mean, that's why Hamas was able to so easily penetrate on October 7th.
By getting over the fence.
Yeah, and it's so close.
Yeah. No, I mean, I just want to know because it seems like it was powerful,
yes.
and it seems like it's informed your record, and I that's what's interesting to me. It's like your story and how you got here, and I think it's narratively what fascinates me.
Maybe one day you'll give me a chance to tell it, though.
Why are you annoyed by this question?
I'm kidding. So I spoke to the local mayor of Stay road.
Yeah.
And he said to me that the majority of his children struggle with post-traumatic stress because families like his live under the threat of relentless rocket fire. And I remember seeing these bus stops doubling as bomb shelters. You know, I come from the Bronx where people live in fear of bullets and guns, but we in America do not worry about Canada and Mexico firing rockets into American homes and communities. You know, we're a country of 330 million people. We're surrounded by oceans, and Israel's a tiny democracy the size of New Jersey that's literally surrounded by both state and non-state actors that are intent on wiping it off the map. So, I left Israel with an empathy for the unique security situation that Israel faces.
Did you visit the...
Okay, so we're already kind of running into a problem here because you're getting to see the sympathy that Ritchie Torres has as he took this trip to Israel. He sees the bomb shelters. He talks to a local mayor who says that his children are traumatized because sometimes they have to run into those bomb shelters if there happens to be a rocket flying from, surrounding Israel or whatever the case may be. And he has a complete and total inability to compare and contrast that experience to the experience of Palestinians in Gaza, for example. Now, in terms of PTSD, and the mental trauma that Palestinians have been subjected to even before this current genocide. I want to show you guys this study, this report that was done by Save the Children. So this is a report from 2022, again, well before October 7th or any of the recent genocide took place in Gaza. The report was titled Trapped, and it found a huge increase in children in Gaza who reported feeling, number one, fearful, which was at 84% of children in Gaza feeling fearful. That was up from 50% in 2018. Number two, nervous was 80%. Sad or depressed was 77%. Grieving was 78%. And it also found that more than half of Gaza's children have contemplated taking their own life. Three out of five have displayed self-harming. This was the state of the experience of children in Gaza pre-genocide. So to speak to a local mayor, to look at the bomb shelters that they have, by the way, Palestinians in Gaza, as they're being subjected to more firepower than was dropped during basically the entirety of World War II on London and Hamburg, etc., who are going through that, they don't have bomb shelters in Gaza, right? So to show that kind of sympathy with Israeli children, but to completely black out the experience that Palestinians have been subjected to for years, well before October 7th, is just wild to me as a human being that you cannot reconcile the experience that Palestinians are being subjected to, the terrorism that they have been subjected to for years and years and years, and then to place that in the context of how we got to October 7th in the first place. But anyways, they continue here.
Occupied territories?
I went into the, not Gaza, but I went to the Palestinian Ramallah. So,
Yeah, Ramallah.
yeah.
And what did you see when you were there?
We spoke to Palestinians who obviously have a much more critical view of Israel. And
And that didn't resonate as much as, like, what was your takeaway from hearing?
Look,
you're hearing the mayor stay wrote his children have PTSD, and then this guy's like, Israel's screwing with me.
well, look, I'm in favor of a two-state solution.
Sure.
Okay, so in terms of Ramallah that he just referenced there, this was apparently one of the places in the occupied Palestinian territories that he visited. This is literally just from today. This is an article from today on the experience of Palestinians in Ramallah. IOF storms Ramallah city center, wounding 58 civilians, including a child. So, I mean, to Ritchie's point there, I wonder why they may have a critical view of the government of Israel. Could it be that they're living under a decades-long military occupation, illegal under international law? Could that have something to do with it? The fact that on a regular basis, they are raided, their family members are killed, they're abducted and arrested and tortured in Israeli dungeons and concentration camps where they are subjected to no due process whatsoever. Could that kind of an experience lead to them maybe having a more critical view of the government of Israel? I mean, it's just, again, incredible, but they continue here.
Sure.
I feel like the just outcome lies not in the existence of a Jewish state to the exclusion of a Palestinian state, or the existence of a Palestinian state to the exclusion of a Jewish state. It's the coexistence of both. So I think I want to see the struggle, both the Israeli and the Palestinian struggle for self-determination, to be reconciled in the form of a two-state solution.
A big topic now.
Okay, just real quick on the two-state solution. I covered this in a recent video. This is the government that he is sending billions of dollars in weapons to, completely uncritically. Israeli settlement plans will, quote, bury idea of a Palestinian state, according to this fascist, psychopathic Israeli minister, Bezalel Smotrich, who is directly in the Benjamin Netanyahu government. In the words of Israeli officials themselves, they are saying, we are expanding our settlements into Palestinian territory, the territory that in a hypothetical two-state solution would be the Palestinian state. We are expanding our settlements there explicitly in an effort to make a Palestinian state impossible, or in his words, to bury that idea. So the notion that you can just say, oh, well, I'm a U.S. politician, I support Israel, but I also support a two-state solution, but I'm going to uncritically send weapons to Israel. There's not really going to be any oversight or sanctions or accountability as they make that possibility impossible. I mean, it's just absurd at face value. The Israeli government does not want a two-state solution. You have hundreds of thousands of illegal Israeli settlers living on the land that would potentially be a Palestinian state. There is no way at this point to have a contiguous Palestinian state because Israel is intentionally and openly, as they say in their own words, making that an impossibility. So it's just incredible to still see people under this sort of delusion as if that's going to magically happen one day.
Nowadays is campus anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
You've spoken out against it. I just want to know what you identify as the examples of this type of anti-Semitism in elite academic institutions.
Yeah, so there were students at CUNY Hillel,
Yeah.
where you had a violent, what I thought was an aggressive mob following them to a kosher restaurant in the heart of New York City. And
What were they doing, the mob? What was the mob doing?
just following them, and then barricaded the restaurant and
They were like chanting?
hurled insults at the patrons and slamming the windows. Much of it is captured in video footage.
Yeah.
And, harassing people simply for being pro-Israel Jews, to me, is wrong.
Is there any other examples? Like, there's a restaurant. I mean, it's just like all we're hearing about is campus anti-Semitism,
I mean,
radical. Like, is there a link between Hamas and the protests? Like, is that established?
There are students who have faced harassment and intimidation because of their beliefs. There are students who feel inhibited from expressing their Jewish or Zionist identity because of the atmosphere of intimidation or harassment on college campuses. You should speak to this.
How have they?
Are you denying that there's any campus anti-Semitism? Or?
I mean, it is incredible there to say that students are facing harassment for, number one, their Jewish and their Zionist beliefs. Those are not the same thing. Being Jewish is an ethnicity, right? That is a religious or an ethnic identity that somebody has. Being a Zionist, that is a political ideology, right? It's an ideology that at its foundation is a settler colonial project. It is an ethnocracy that is attempting to be built at the expense of an indigenous population of Palestinians. Like, that's not, believing in that or supporting that and being criticized for it is not the same thing as being harassed for being Jewish. Those are two very different things. One of them is anti-Semitism. One of them is very clearly not. It's criticism of a political ideology. So that part of it's amazing. And then as Adam is also saying there, it's like, we're talking about a full-blown live stream genocide that's been going on for 2 years straight. You have students who are protesting our support for that genocide, whether it's at the governmental level or at their universities level, being complicit in contracts with the Israeli military and with the Israeli government. They're protesting that. They're being harassed not just by other Zionist students, but by the fucking police, and arrested for doing peaceful encampments and being kicked out of their schools and having their degrees taken away. He doesn't factor that into any sort of any sort of harassment faced by students on campus, but he focuses in on like these one or two or a couple different examples of people being harassed for being Zionists or whatever, and makes that the focal story, as if that is the major problem in this equation, not the full-blown genocide that the students themselves are protesting in the first place.
I'll give you an example. I know a younger person that went to UCLA and was attacked and is Jewish and was with a group of Jewish people at a protest, and they were attacked by the Proud Boys.
Okay, that's an anti-Semitic incident.
No, but the Proud Boys were there for Israel, and those are the guys that did
The
Charlottesville.
Proud Boys are there for Israel?
Yeah.
I think of the Proud Boys as like white nationalists and white supremacists.
I'm telling you right now.
We're anti-Israel, but okay.
Listen, I'm like a comedian, right? Like, I hate when comedians, especially on the internet, like speak from a position of authority about crap that they don't know about. You know, this is one topic I feel like I can speak on, and
on college campus anti-Semitism.
No, on anti-Semitism and
in general, because you haven't been in college how long? Probably 2 decades, right?
I'm telling you on my experience of anti-Semitism the last 2 years. But the last 2 years have felt different in America, and I don't know if you've been on Twitter recently. Now a ton of people are questioning the validity of the Holocaust having happened.
Yes.
Can you tell me with a straight face that those are the 18-year-old kids at Columbia that are doing that?
The 18-year-old kids at Columbia?
Are they doing those posts about the Holocaust never having existed? You know who's doing it.
No, we disagree here.
You think that it's the...
So don't put words in my mouth.
It's people on the right. Let me tell you...
You're suggesting that you're suggesting there's no one on the far left that denies the Holocaust? Or downplays the Holocaust? That's an absurd statement.
You're doing moot court right now. I'm telling you what it's like to be my experience.
The level of deluded that you have to be to think that it's anti-genocide, like lefty protesters on college campuses that are doing Holocaust denial and not far-right neo-Nazis. I can't even wrap my head around that. I don't know if he genuinely believes that, or if this is just sort of like a talking point to him, or if this is how warped his view on the situation is. But as a leftist, as somebody who runs in leftist circles, I know many other leftist content creators, etc., I have never met a single person who is genuinely on the left who is a Holocaust denier. That's neo-Nazi shit, right? I don't know anybody who does that. But in the mind of Ritchie Torres, there's really not much of a difference between the people who are protesting on college campuses against a genocide and actual neo-Nazis. To him, when you're critical of Israel, you're critical of Jewish people. And so those are basically the same thing. I mean, it's just incredible.
Being Jewish.
Yeah, but there are others who have a different...
I'm trying to see. Why is one better than the other? Why is one more important than the other? I'm trying to share with you. You're in the government. I don't get a chance to talk.
Of course.
Okay. I think hatred of Jewish people has exploded in this country, and I don't think it's. I think it's because it's of our support of what looks to be an absolute brutality, and I think that
you think that's a justification for anti-Semitism?
Here's the thing:
you think Israeli government policy is a justification for anti-Semitism? My view is there's no justification for anti-Semitism.
I think that
there's zero justification for anti-Semitism.
Okay, you're deflecting again.
I'm not deflecting. That's my position.
What does it look like to have a flag with a Jewish star and I'm Jewish, and for kids to be starving right now? And why is my government? I don't want to do this fight. Let's not do like a yelling at each other thing. I really just, for me, I had the experience of.
It just sounds like you're justifying anti-Semitism, which is making me feel like.
Are you crazy right now?
Okay.
Why would I do that? You're doing the.
He is literally Jewish himself. And Ritchie is saying, you're trying to justify anti-Semitism. No, what he's doing here is he's giving a very simple explanation of what might drive an increase in anti-Semitism when you have a country, as he said there, that represents the Jewish Star of David on their flag, that, as I've shown you guys before, their soldiers in the scorched earth of Gaza that they destroyed and flattened to the ground, literally carved the Star of David into the ground with tanks, right? When you do that kind of thing, when you say if you criticize our government, you're criticizing all Jewish people, when you make an explicit effort to tie the actions of a genocidal apartheid state to an entire ethnicity or an entire religious group, that is going to drive anti-Semitism. It's not a justification, it's an explanation of how Israel is making that worse. And he's 100% right about that, but Ritchie just either refuses or is completely incapable of understanding the through line there.
I'm Hamas thing.
I'm not saying
it's
you're
not
Hamas,
a winner.
but I'm not. I think
We'll
there should be.
We'll do a different tack.
Israeli government policy should have
I
no
think we're-
bearing on. If you have disagreements with the Israeli government, you should voice your criticism of the Israeli government. But there is no justification for intimidation or harassment against American Jews.
I'm telling you as a Jew right now that we are receiving a lot more hate because of what the people with the flag that has a Jewish star on are doing to other people right now. I'm telling you as a Jewish person how painful it is for us to say, and it hurts my stomach to say this, and you're going to say, I disagree, that this is a genocide. And that hurts to say that a Jew can do that. It hurts because we grew up with learning about what hatred is. We grew up learning about this. And the same year the State of Israel was established, in 1948, the world saw the Holocaust, and they established standards for what a genocide is. It was the same year. And the world said that this shouldn't be a thing that happens. You know? And I just wonder, like, it doesn't make sense to me, I don't know, it doesn't track to me why there's this fixation with kids at a school and two examples of people at a restaurant that there was banging.
Two examples. I mean, there are surveys on it.
Give me
read the ADL surveys on it.
It's hard for me to talk about this.
Read the ADL surveys. The same ADL that in the surveys that he's referencing here include chants of free Palestine as anti-Semitic incidents. That's the ADL survey that he's talking about here. The same ADL whose head, Jonathan Greenblatt, compared wearing a Palestinian keffiyeh, right, a symbol of Palestinian culture, to wearing an armband with a Nazi swastika on it. Do you guys think that that's a credible organization? No, of course not. The entire purpose of the ADL right now is to attack and to smear anybody who criticizes the Israeli government as being an anti-Semite. That's the entire purpose of the ADL. So incredible that he would cite those numbers.
In public,
clearly, I mean,
you're being a dick. That's mean.
No, I'm not being mean. Clearly, it's an emotional topic.
All right, I'll share with you what happened.
I'm not.
I lived there.
I don't intend to be mean. So.
Sir, I lived there when I was 18, and I grew up a Zionist. And we were told, and our whole community in this country is told, that we have to defend Israel and love Israel because it will stop at the Holocaust. It will stop another Holocaust from happening. And my dad was born in 1951. That was 6 years after these atrocities. His friends' parents, he knew these people that had been through this hell, these skeletons. And it terrified us. And the understanding in our community is that we have to defend Israel. But I lived there, and I went to a settlement at the end of my year there, and I looked down the hill at a Palestinian village, and I saw how they lived, and I turned back and I looked at the settlement and saw how they lived. And people live in a world where they're demeaned and dehumanized and surveilled constantly by people and this isn't in Gaza, by people in SWAT team outfits with semi-automatic weapons, and that's what the world is seeing. And you keep telling me that the problem is someone's getting yelled at a restaurant? I'm sorry.
You're conflating two different issues.
Please. Me saying this to you right now will hurt people in my own family, okay? Because this is a very important thing to us. And the fact that I still fucking care about being Jewish is embarrassing. I should just be a guy. But this feels like a stain on our history. And it feels like it's changed what being Jewish is. Because what being Jewish isn't Israel. Judaism has existed for 4,000 years. This is a country for 75 years. You know, like, it is one of the oldest monotheistic religions. Anti-Semitism is one of the oldest forms of hatred. People in my life are going to be mad at me about this, but I'm saying this because I am Jewish. You know, and I don't understand why you would be.
Look how you define.
I want to.
I feel like I'm here to be lectured, not.
Shut up. That's not nice. You can't talk that way.
I mean, that kind of summarizes this entire interview with Ritchie here. You have Adam, who is being just a normal fucking human being, who's looking at the atrocities in front of him that he sees every day on his Twitter feed or whatever. He sees the atrocities being committed in his name, and he says, this is fucked up, right? I don't know how to reconcile this given my experience, right? Growing up as a Zionist, in a family of Zionists, living in Israel briefly. He's emotionally tied to this in many different ways. He's saying, by even speaking about it like this, I'm going to get, reverberating consequences for my family potentially. He's pouring his heart out in this situation to talk about the atrocities that are being committed in his name. And Ritchie's response to that is to sit here and to smirk, to say, I feel like I'm here to be lectured. No, you're having a conversation with a normal human being, right? Clearly you can't relate to being a normal human being, as I think was exemplified throughout the entirety of this interview. Clearly you can't relate to what that's like, but that's what you're here for, right? Like, this is not your normal bubble kind of CNN, MSNBC 2 to 3 minute hit where they let you say whatever you want, or they tee you up with some easy pro-Israel framed question. That's not what this is, right? This is a conversation, supposed to be, between two human beings to potentially reconcile disagreements that they have. And again, you see through who Ritchie Torres is in this. Just a morally decrepit, soulless, corrupted ghoul. And I genuinely, this is even a different side than I was expecting from Ritchie, going into this knowing pretty much who and what kind of politician he is. So we'll finish off here. I got one more bit of this towards the end that I want to show you that was kind of incredible as they were wrapping up this conversation. So let's go ahead and jump over here and watch a little bit of this.
That live there. I don't think that they should leave.
What are you proposing?
I'm proposing a democracy. I'm proposing an extensive demographic study of what was taken and what was lost, extensive reparations for what was taken, and a truth and reconciliation process where we can end this shit. What we're seeing right now is that members of the Israeli government are talking about clearing that shit out. And Trump, our president, is talking about putting a fucking jet ski museum there. And that's the reality right now.
That is the far right, yes.
It's
That's
the
a
far
view that
right?
I reject. So
What the far right? I'm talking about the government and the generals that are in charge of Israel.
the Ben-Gavirs, the Smotriches of the world, that's a view
They're
that I
the
reject.
cabinet.
Yes, and I reject them.
That's what Hamas is saying they want to do to Israel.
He's talking about the plan that is being fully backed and touted by both the United States and the current Israeli government. For Ritchie to say, the same Ritchie who wants to justify continued sending weapons to this government to facilitate their military plans, for him to just shrug it off and say, oh, that's just like the far right. That's, Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, and I disagree with them. It's like, no, those are the guys who are implementing the current Israeli policy that you are arming and funding. You can't separate yourself from those guys. That's the plan that they are enacting. Just incredible.
I'm sorry?
Hamas
murdered thousands of people, so there's no...
So what does that mean?
That Hamas is a terrorist organization for murdering innocent children and civilians.
How many civilians have been killed in this war?
The war is a tragedy, but
90% of them have been... 90% of them have been civilians. They've killed journalists. They've killed journalists.
People have been killed in a war. It's been a tragedy.
They've killed people waiting for aid.
But you're suggesting that it is the policy of the Israeli government to murder civilians, and that is a notion that I reject.
It's a notion that's 100% provably and demonstrably true, that the policy of the Israeli government is to kill civilians. We don't have to guess at this. We can look at the testimony of Israeli soldiers themselves. We can look at the words of Israeli generals, of Israeli ministers within the government. It is explicitly the policy of the Israeli government, of the Israeli military, to kill civilians, not to mention the evidence on the ground. Whereas Adam was pointing out there, an overwhelming majority of the civilians, or of the people that they've been killing in Gaza, are civilians. They've deliberately and repeatedly targeted journalists and doctors and aid workers and paramedics, etc., over and over and over again. This isn't a secret. We have testimony of doctors, including American doctors, who have been on the ground in Gaza, who say that they're receiving children on a daily basis who have sniper bullets to the head and to the chest. Right? This is not an oopsie-daisy accidentally you happen to be standing around a Hamas militant. This is a direct targeting of innocent men, women, children, journalists, doctors, etc. This is not a gray area. This is not difficult to figure out at this point. But notice how Ritchie Torres got uncomfortable there, right? Because he initially starts off very confidently saying, well, Hamas killed 1,000 civilians or whatever his number was. It wasn't actually accurate to the number of civilians, non-military personnel killed on October 7th, but whatever. He says 1,000 civilians were killed on October 7th by Hamas. And so therefore, because Hamas killed civilians, right, let's take his 1,000 number, therefore they are a terrorist organization. And he says this confidently and clearly, no qualms about it. And Adam responds simply by saying, well, how many civilians have been killed in Gaza, right? If Hamas is a terrorist organization for killing civilians on October 7th, then what does that make Israel? A super mega terrorist organization? Because you could take even the upper estimate of the amount of civilians killed on October 7th that he was referencing there, you'd have to multiply it at least at this point by 100 to get to the amount of civilians that have been killed by Israel since October 7th. In fact, it was only a couple of days or a couple of weeks after October 7th that Israel had already killed multiple times more civilians than were killed on October 7th. So, I mean, it's just incredible. And then to go from saying Hamas is a terrorist organization to then confront it on the fact that Israel has killed far more civilians and caused far more destruction. And he says, well, war is a tragedy. Okay, so on this hand, it's terrorism. On this hand, when it's done multiple times over, that's just a tragedy. A tragic mishap, a tragic, unfortunate part of war. I mean, again, I'll leave you guys off with that, but great job to Adam in this interview. You know, it's rare that you get the opportunity to have an interview with a, you know, high-ranking U.S. politician that is really just a conversation where the interviewer is not going there with like sort of a preloaded script of talking points, corporate talking points or AIPAC talking points or whatever, and allowing the politician to be weaselly and to not answer questions and to tap dance around, but just to have like a human conversation is such a rare thing. And you can tell that it's a rare thing because of how fucking uncomfortable Ritchie Torres is throughout the entirety of this interview. I mean, the way that he speaks, his facial expressions, the way that he is sitting, this guy doesn't seem like he understands how to have a human conversation about this kind of thing. And maybe that's because he's paid, you know, or he's funded by groups like AIPAC to have a certain position. Maybe it's an ideological thing. Maybe this is just kind of the demented person that he is. But you get to see that through in this interview. And so again, credit to Adam for bringing that out of him. So I'll leave you guys off with that. You know, like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And I will see you guys tomorrow.
Politic guy has the best politic. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying